Hello, Aurora Block community. Good evening, everybody. Welcome, 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 welcome. Well, we have an amazing evening set up for you. We have an amazing evening. Welcome. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome. I'm so excited about this movie and I'm so excited about this conversation. You know what I just remembered is that a part of Black history is gospel, is music. And we all know that. And while we know it's so hard to be here and be stuck behind the screen, I can't thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. Lulu, Adrian, Ron, everybody, Wagwan, welcome, welcome. Hi, hello. If I don't see your name, don't worry, I'll catch it afterwards. But thank you, guys. We're really looking for you to engage, to participate. Thank you. To engage, to participate. You know, there's a song that says, I'll rise up, I'll rise like a day, I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid, I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. We have to rise up. And so this movie is going to be so beautiful, and we really want you to stop and ask questions and engage. It's going to be phenomenal. So thank you for being a part of tonight. Thank you for being a part of the journey of Aurora's first Black History Month. It's been an honor to serve you, to host it with you guys, and to have a conversation. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Good evening. Welcome, welcome, welcome to you all. So we have some amazing guests, and we only have 1 hour, and it's a beautiful movie. So I want to jump right into it. If you've watched the movie already, hello, hello. I see you guys. Thank you for coming on. Thank you. Thank you. Stay with me. Stay right here. Comment, ask question, be a part, because it's going to be a beautiful conversation. So without any more talking, I will welcome my co-host and one of the facilitator of Aurora Black community, which is Rebecca Murdoch. Well, my sister, welcome, welcome. Welcome, Rebecca.
Good evening. It's so exciting to watch a movie together. We can't go to the theaters.
I know, right? Well, welcome. Thank you for being a part of this journey. Thank you for being a part of this journey. We have such a great relationship from about 2000, early 2019, and it's just so amazing to have met you. And this movie, you will get to talk about it because you are such a community icon that we need as a part of the journey to this dialogue and this conversation and education that we need for the inclusivity of our conversation and the community that we have. And we're blessed to be a part of Aurora. So I can't be so, I can't say thank you enough for being here tonight.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. All right, so we're going to bring on our amazing Nelia from the Aurora Film Circuit, and she is just phenomenal. I don't know what I would have done without her with these movies. So Nelia, please welcome and thank you so much for being a part of this celebration and this education and this part of the conversation that is so needed. Welcome.
Thank you, Fiona. It was wonderful to get an opportunity to discuss film. You know me, nonstop. Where's the mute button for Nelia? No, wonderful to be part of this group.
We're not muting you. You don't even worry about that. Hey, Jennifer, welcome. Thank you guys for coming on. As you come on, if there's an opportunity to share it and comment, please do so. And please engage. If you watch the movie, we want it to be a conversation. Right, Nelia?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The more comments, the more questions, greater discussion we can get. And again, it's about sharing your thoughts. It's about educating us and vice versa. It's a two-way street. We're here to learn too.
Exactly. So why don't you give us a synopsis of this movie before we call on one of our special guests tonight?
Well, I've seen lots of great comments. People really enjoyed the film, and I have to, so I'm going to apologize if I just mess up Uza, Adubas, name, so I'll start there. And, you know, we all know she plays Virginia Walden Ford. And this film is based on a true story, and it's a really quite a remarkable story. And, you know, I got the opportunity and I saw the film, and some of you may know this about me, some of you have not. To me, it's all about the research. Why did this film get made? Why did the director think it was important? Where did the screenplay come from, and so on? And again, one of those things that I think is really important is understanding the background and where she came from. I mean, so here's a woman, you know, in the movie, it is based on a true story. In real life, she had 3 children. She just didn't have the one. So again, so her circumstances as a single mother with 3 children. There was also, you know, so she saw an issue and she was going to fight. Her advocacy is so admirable in this film. But she also comes from a background. Both her parents were educators. They were in the school system. So that also gives her a foundation of what she understood and wanted for her children.
That's right.
She and her twin sister were part of, in Little Rock, Arkansas, one of 130 students that are integrated in an all-white school back in the 60s. So we can only imagine, you know, I'm sure we've all read stuff and how that whole situation went. Begged her parents, please don't, can't go any there, dealt with, you know, bulliness, racism the whole time there. And her parents made it very clear to her, it's your responsibility to make a difference. You have a chance. And that's what she kind of went with, and she ran with it. You know, but one of the things I think it's important to understand in the film, because it is based on a true story, it is not a documentary, but it is overall, and just to respect that process of what she went through. In the movie, we see it so quick in 2 hours, but that's years and years of her fighting. You know, years of actually her friends supporting her son and putting him in that private school, because she didn't have the funds, while she was fighting and advocating and doing all her work on Congress to get the bill passed. And I think that's something we really have to think about, because that's her foundation coming in, and that's huge. As a single mother, 3 children, having to have that second job, thinking her community is supporting her, sometimes sabotaging her, and again, but she was always up for the fight. And the actress, I'm going to say it again, Uza Aduba, was, again, she carried the film. She was brilliant. She was fantastic. And her son James, I really enjoyed watching him too. But yeah, so I think all that, you know, that stuff is really, really important to understand where it's coming from and why this movie was made and why it was necessary to be made.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. That is beautifully put together.
Yeah, no, it was an exciting film. Like I said, I mean, it's some of these films, again, I love to have the background on it, because it just supports, you know, what her advocacy was. And again, and you think about it, it's over and over. I think about our other movie that we watched, you know, a couple of last week or 2 weeks ago, and it was the same kind of that perseverance that there's no one's going to say no to her, and you know, and her life is threatened, you know, her children are compromised, you know, her community is sabotaging her, and it just doesn't, you know, she understands, she has a dream for her child. As any of us who are parents, we have a dream for our children, and that's what was important for her.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Nelia. Rebecca, before we bring on one of our special guests today, we know you have a particular part that you want to speak on tonight, but what's the first thing that you want to bring to the community or share with us before we even bring on our guest in a minute?
With regards to the film?
Yes.
I have to say that her tenacity, her resiliency, which is a key word that we talk about with mental health and the success in any culture, her resiliency and her ability to draw in community. That whole you can't get without flies to the honey or versus flies in the vinegar. She was charming. She had so much stick-to-itiveness that you couldn't want but help her. And that's when I was surprised when there were a couple characters in the film that didn't want to help her, even though they presented as wanting to at the beginning. She did stick with the community. I was impressed that she continued no matter what was happening, still wanting those signatures. She wouldn't take no for an answer. She was willing to do things that were not glamorous to continue her cause.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for that. We will bring on, because Counselor Gallo, because we just realized, just like you said, Nelia, it is such a the film is about what are we doing as a community, from leadership to being a resident, to being in the education system, to even be just the parent, even the child. What are we doing? And so we would love to welcome John Gallo to the platform tonight, and just to start to talk about this piece and where we go as a community, and how, and what he can share with our community on this. Good evening, John Gallo.
Hello, hello.
Welcome. It's a pleasure having you tonight. It's going to be really an amazing conversation, and we thank you for accepting the invitation to be a part of this conversation. For me, as a male figure, and also as a person in a position where you are as a counselor of our town, and just watching that movie and see the role that we play there, and how its effect and how it impact the success of our community. So welcome, introduce yourself. Let us know a little bit about what you want to share on this movie today before Nelia chants some questions at you.
Okay, sure.
And as you're on, everyone, continue to put your questions in the comments. Anything that we've said or shared so far, or based on what you've watched, please put in the comments so we can engage and have this conversation, because it's gonna get heated from here. Go ahead, Mr. Gallo.
First of all, thank you for having me here and providing my perspective on the movie from where I sit as a municipal councillor in the town of Aurora. There's lots of takeaways from the movie that I found. I tried to put a few together that relate to what I do, and there's three of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to go through them with you. The first one, what stood out to me is you should be very careful about who you perceive as an ally. In the movie, the congresswoman, a Black lady in the community, was perceived to be an ally of Miss Virginia, and really wasn't.
That's right.
Because of her own personal, I guess, agenda.
Yes.
And equally so was the mayor of DC, a Black man, part of the community, that she thought, at least initially, that was an advocate. Wasn't until he saw that there was a big movement. And right. Only at that point did he change his perspective. And to me, that was too late. You don't, as a politician, well, it's done often, but I think it's wrong that you change your stance based on a movement. To me, it was somewhat insincere.
That's right.
The second was, and you already spoke about it, was just her perseverance and the power of people to affect change. Through so much adversity, she fell, she got up, she pursued it, she was resilient, and she was successful at the end. And to me, that's admirable. Many times, great ideas fail because we're not strong enough, and the willpower isn't there to pursue it to the end. And she did that, and that's fantastic. I think one of the things that I noticed, and I tried to relate to what I do, was all she wanted was to be heard initially. She had an idea, and she wanted to make some changes, and she struggled to be heard. Even though she went to her allies, they misguided her. She thought they were her allies, and they weren't. Many times, the average person doesn't know the system and doesn't know how to work the system. And it's actually interesting that the person least likely to help her ended up helping her. But I believe that's what we're here for. Politicians are facilitators, they're brokers, they're advocates for our constituents, and we try to address their issues. Mm-hmm. We try to direct a movement or anger or frustration towards a more detailed purpose to affect change. Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that I don't like, and many politicians unfortunately do this, was tokenism. Do something just to
Yes.
check off a box.
Yes.
Do something because you anticipate the next election and you want to have, something that you did written on your campaign literature to fill a certain purpose. I can't stand that.
I'm
I
going
think
to
it's
interrupt
wrong.
you right
Yeah.
there, Mr. Gallo. I'm going to interrupt you right there because this is too good. It is too good. And right, Rebecca, I'm going to just dash that right to you before I even say anything, because I'm trying to make sure I don't get emotional tonight, because this movie spoke to my marrow. I can't explain that to you guys anymore. It spoke to every piece of my blood vessel. And so, Rebecca, I'm going to just throw that at you. What would you like to add to that? And then we have Shauna Lewis, we have Ron with some comments. We're going to go back to those comments in a bit. So thank you guys for the comments. Keep them coming. Rebecca, what would you like to say in response to Mr. Gallo's comment?
I agree, and I appreciate him saying that, because I know as a politician, it must be really difficult to be the voice of everybody. And sometimes it's easier to be the voice of what's popular. And I was curious why that one man, Matthew Modine, it was interesting seeing him and his hair, how his character didn't seem like the type to be on her side. And I was curious why he did do that, because there really wasn't much in it for him, was there? And that was really uplifting to know that there is a good person out there. It isn't who you might think it would be. Like, we thought it would be the black mayor or the other black councillor, and that was quite a shock. So it is nice. You don't actually, in relation to what you're saying, I appreciate you saying that, because people have asked me, why am I involved in this community? And what did we say? It's not my color, it's our character. And that matters more than which team I'm rooting for. I don't care what your color is. This is important, and that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Someone just commented and said that's the word again, Fiona, something. We've been struggling over the while with the word something. And Nelia, I'm going to push this back to you, because when you send me your summary, you touched the key part on it for me when you say wait. So in the movie, if we have that clip, I know I said we were going to do it later. If we have that clip, are we able to play that clip for me, please? Like right now, if possible. We have a little clip of that piece. And I don't have my communication, but if until that comes up, the wait.
Well,
I think it's coming up.
Okay,
Now.
I think the video. Great.
It's been a long day. I had to pull my son out of school. It was a really good one, but I couldn't afford it. So tomorrow, my son has to come back here. He can't run here. Nobody can. Lorraine Townsend is telling us that we need to wait. Be patient, and eventually change will come. Well, I don't know about you, but my son can't wait. He needs change today, not tomorrow, not next week, and definitely not eventually. We've been waiting for decades. And I'm done. And you know what else I'm done with? I am done with this lie about money. Now, they say to us that the schools are bad because they're poor. And
Thank you for that. Nelia, before I go back to you and go back to Mr. Gallo, it is hard to be a Virginia. It's because that journey can be very lonely. That journey sometimes have you even question your own character, if you're good enough. It's even make you want to run, because it's risk, it's threatening your integrity, your reputation, because nothing is worse than what Mr. Gallo just says. You're not heard, or you're not heard. You just want to be listened to. You just want to be heard. And that tuned off. So Nelia, please touch on that weight piece for me.
And I'm not going to try to be to me, the weight thing is, I think about, slavery was abolished in 1865. That's how long people of color have been waiting. And when you continuously ask, and have this expectation to wait, I don't understand it, because I certainly know I wouldn't be waiting that long if that was the situation my child would be, to have someone. We all know an education is a civil rights issue. Everyone should be entitled to have a proper education. And to ask someone to continuously wait when they have been waiting, and again, with all due respect, from 1865 to even be recognized, because we all know when slavery was abolished, the next day, everybody didn't wake up and was no longer racist or believe that it was the right thing to do. And that happens in today's world, right? We get laws implemented, signed off, and so on. It doesn't mean the very next day that's in effect. It changes whole people's perspectives and what their views are, and so on. And so, that's what it's just, you're continuously hearing the wait. And I don't understand what the wait is for. Black History Month has been in Canada for how long? Close to 25 years now that has been approved, and so what? Why do we need to have the discussion every single year about Black History Month? Again, it shouldn't have to be a month. It's something we could celebrate. But again, that's what the decisions the government has made. But here we are every year. There's still discussions of, what are we going to do? What's appropriate? What's this? And why is it not just kind of an automatic, and having to continuously wait people to ask to wait when I'm not being asked to wait? Why should?
And so, as you said that, Nelia, I'll go back to Mr. Gallo before we bring on our guest. I felt that personally, when I look at this movie, I didn't sleep last night. I didn't. I just didn't sleep, because so much was going on. And then after watching this movie and after my experience, I realized even my Black people are telling me to wait, to be patient. This is new. I'm like, I'm not new. I was Black from 41 years ago, and I've been in the community for 14 years.
Yeah.
What am I waiting on? So Mr. Gallo touched on something that I would like him to probably elaborate on, the do something. Someone had commented, I don't know where it is, in a comment that say, again, here's the key word, do something. The performative, the tokenism, do something. So in the movie, we also saw where they were trying to get to tell Virginia what to say. They gave her a piece of thing on a paper so that person can look good. That is sabotaging the whole community, because we want what comes over the platform and what's being recorded to sound good. We can't make anything sound challenging and let the community hear. Let's put the pretty piece out. So, Mr. Gallo, back to you in the do something. How can we change that?
I honestly struggle with this on multiple levels, because as I've mentioned, I know to you before, systemic change takes time, and it's not something that happens overnight. And I know that's not what the community wants to hear. And some days I don't even believe that's true. There are days where I think, little bits here and there that we can do add up, and maybe we don't focus on the big picture so much, and do the little things. And I was going to tell you a little story that's related to Aurora, not in politics but in leadership. At Hartman Public School, there was a principal there, Camille, that was a Black principal, and she was an advocate for change in the public system. And by doing little things, and I'll give you one story about one of the things she did during Remembrance Day. As we all know, we see these pictures of white men, with guns, and either in the field or wherever, pictures of them. That's not an accurate portrayal of the people that fought for us. There are Blacks, there are Indigenous that fought for us. So she found pictures and she put them in the school. And those little things, showed the kids in that environment that, history may be a little bit different than what we were told. And we need to show that to our youth and in the education system. To me, that's where it starts. As far as my role, I really believe I'm here to listen and to understand and to see where, within the confines of what I can do, affects some change. I'm an advocate. I'm a big advocate, and I'm a sincere advocate. And I'll tell it the way it is. And maybe sometimes it's not taken nicely, but if it's how I feel, it's how I feel.
And it's
And
also,
I'll be educated if it's not right.
and sorry to interrupt, but it's also the fact that a citizen has to come up and try to convince the government for something that is so blatantly right
Necessary.
to do.
Yeah.
That there's no question, there's no gray in the area. Her fight and what she was fighting for, again, and how it's, door after door after door put in front of her, even at the town hall where, you didn't sign up, you're not on the list to speak. It's again, that whole message of wait, because we don't want to deal with you. So hopefully next month or next quarter when we have this town hall, you won't be as passionate or maybe as revved up to kind of and fight this fight. Even at that moment, they're trying to sabotage her because she didn't follow the rules, but she didn't know the rules.
Yeah.
Before I bring you back in, Rebecca, you just said something, Nelia, that is the nail on the head. I'm in a place where I'm asked to follow rules that I don't know what they are. And because the platform and the foundation hasn't been laid, I'm constantly looking like I'm a troublemaker because I'm trying to get my voice to be heard. And I'm hearing this is not the place. It's not here. It's not there. It's not now. When? Show me the place.
Fiona, don't worry about that. Keep going. I'm always a troublemaker. I'm continuously a troublemaker. It's okay. As long as your heart is in the right place, you're trying to evoke change, who cares what they think?
So, Rebecca, you have been on the Aurora Block community because I love your heart. Before George Floyd, because we didn't need him, and we value that we get more action, and sadly on his life. But you have been around, and you came to my salon, and before you don't know me, and yet you put my name everywhere you could think of. So for me, you were natural. That's authenticness. You don't just jump on. So when someone questions, what is this white girl doing with me? That is the face of Aurora. This is the face of diversity. We are bridging cultures. We're not trying to create another separation. And so having your voice and your advocacy and your community leadership, it's volume, and it's so needed. In terms of the movie and watching how this lady advocate to get even the petition signed and getting support and people to rally behind her. And not only that, but when the person came and grabbed her out of the bed when she was giving up, which I felt last night, I thought of you. That person would said, no, we can't quit now. Get up. We have work to do. Talk about that. And then I'm going to bring on Chrissia just after you speak.
Well, I appreciate you catching me off guard like this. What thing will I say about this? But that woman, I loved her character. I feel like you needed one firecracker because after a while, the main character was probably so tired. And you're saying, Nelia was saying how much longer this actually had been going on than what the film was showing. They didn't show all the other kids she was actually taking care of. I can't even imagine the jobs and the exhaustion, the mental, the physical, the economic. And the fact that this one friend, that woman whose own son was hurt by her other son, that you find out later, she represented the kick in the pants that we all need. And I appreciate you equating me to that. There's no complacency. Resiliency is what the other woman obviously had, and she kind of was spreading it to her other friend. I think it's all how you're raised, and we can lie down. I hate that phrase, you can take it lying down, but she could have just rolled over and given up and sent her son back to the school that things were not working out. But she also saw a window of what the life was going to be. And so really the fight was for ultimately her son, secondarily being a Black woman.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you.
Advocacy is a very lonely place.
Yeah.
It really, really is. It takes courage.
And I just
It
want
does.
Aurora to look like all the other parts of Toronto where I don't even know if they're sitting having this discussion anywhere in Toronto every February. Do they have this? No, it's automatic. It's rolled in. Here's the format. Let's celebrate. Just like Chinese New Year and all the other months that we represent and we recognize without question.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that. And I want to see if we can bring up some of the questions and the comments back that we have from the viewers and for the people that are participating, so we can tag on to that. Is there any comments that we're missing that we can get back on screen so we can address them? I believe I saw someone was saying that there was a principle. Find your allies and walk. I'm not sure what that means. Who know what that means and want to comment on it?
Right here, we've got allies and we're walking.
All right. I love that.
Yeah,
Any other comments on the
what
screen that we may have missed? There's a person that called Camille hiring a Black teacher at Hartman. Okay. So I think that's probably in response to what Councillor Gallo was speaking of. John Lewis says, "Good trouble."
Yeah, that's right. It's not being a troublemaker. It's good trouble.
I'm going to bring on a special guest, and then we're going to bring back Councillor Gallo for to finish off this very important conversation. This single mom that I want to bring on, the fight is real to be a parent and an advocate at the same time. And so, yet as parents, we have that responsibility and we owe that to our children to fight for their success, to fight for their education, to fight for having a place that we want them to grow and feel proud. So we will bring on Christia and just have her to express from a single mom's point of view and give us something else that we can chew on from that. Christia, welcome, and thank you for being a part of tonight's conversation.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be a part of this historical event. The first Black History Month celebration in Aurora. Like, are there Black people in Aurora? Is that what's happening? Like, are we getting bought out of the Toronto housing market that, we're coming for you? So I'm so glad that John Gallo is not on the screen, because I just was rolling my eyes. I have a lot to say in terms of the word waiting. You, Nelia, commented that Black people have been waiting since 1865. Well, they've been waiting a lot longer than that. And to be honest, Black people sold Black people. And that's exactly what you see in this movie. You see Black people sabotaging other Black people to get the crumbs of success they can gather, because that's the only way. That's the only way that they can have success, is by pushing people who are already oppressed, making them more oppressed. And so I have a few things to say. One is, my name's Christia, and I am a stand-up comedian. I'm also a single mother. I'm an alcoholic, and I have borderline personality disorder. And all of those things wrapped up into one is a lot to deal with. And it's even harder to deal with when you have a child. And when you have a child, you can't live for yourself. You literally have to wake up to feed someone else. And that's what you see in the movie. You see Miss Virginia making herself invisible to let her son shine. But tell me, why does she need to do that? Why is it that she has to go through all of that suffering to get to that conclusion? Would she not have been able to just advocate for this without having to do all the dirty work? Why do we need Miss Virginias? Why aren't these opportunities given to people as they're doing the work? We're doing the work. Pay Black people. That's what you need to do. Education is a great equalizer, and access to education is modern. Like, there's just You know what we're waiting for? We're waiting for white supremacy and patriarchy to get smashed, because those are the systems that are keeping us tied. Our hands are tied because of the system, the rules. You know why you don't know the rules of the game? Because they keep changing the rules. They keep changing the rules to satisfy their comfort. I don't care anymore. I'm uncomfortable. I've been uncomfortable my whole life. And you know, Rebecca, you say you can't imagine. Well, you don't need to imagine. You would never have to go through that to get those opportunities.
I know.
It is not Black people that need to do the work. It is the people who have been keeping Black people down. And in the same way that Townsend accepts these donations, in the same way that she advocates for, you know, chronically underfunded schools, it's not chronic. It's designed that way. It is designed that way to take advantage. And what needs to happen on a level of legislature is accountability. Who is going to take the accountability to get people like Fiona to have their voices heard? It shouldn't have to take a George Floyd.
That's right. That's right.
The civil war we're currently living is a race war. And it isn't about character versus color, because every colored person I know has a good character. And we need to stop saying this fluffy BS. It's not working. And I don't think that if you have single mothers going through this, they should be part of the conversation. We should have single mothers that are in MPs' offices as consultants. You have these big corporations who hire anti-Black racism consultants and can't even look at themselves in the mirror to say, what am I doing wrong? Instead of, how can I make this right? Black people already have the solution. They've been telling you this whole time. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You need to give us a chance to drive the car. You know, it's not about the equality and all of that. It really is there's this white savior syndrome. And I'm really glad that this movie addresses the fact that it's also within the race. There's also colorism within Black people. There's the fact that in the community, the drug dealer, he purposely preys on the vulnerable, the innocent.
Yes.
Because their parents have to go to work. They have 3 jobs. They're not home. They're drug addicts. And those sorts of things are what is at the root of the problem. So if you don't go and uncover and take care of that wound that has been festering all of these years and keep putting a Band-Aid on top of it, you're not going to get a solution. You need to go in and do that surgical work internally so that there can be change within the system externally. And I'm sorry, I didn't know I was going to get this like heated about it, but it really is my son. I know that I have to present myself in a certain way to get my son certain opportunities, certain advantages. Sometimes we are the only brown people in a gymnastics class. But why do I need a scholarship to have access to these things that should be accessible to everyone, especially education? Especially education. Teachers need to get paid more so that they can care and that they don't have to only focus on the ones who want to make it. What about the ones who aren't as smart as everyone else? They're not going to get the scholarships. What, they don't deserve to be given opportunities? So I'm really incest in this this movie really did capture my my spirit right now, because it's not a convenient conversation to have, and it is important to address that, to address the discomfort.
You are hitting the nail on the head. I'm gonna, before I send it to Nelia to address, I will pull up AJ just because of a comment that says killing for Jordans. AJ is a youth, again, and just to this point of what Christia spoke on, AJ as a youth, what would you like to add on that
First
conversation?
of all, I'm happy to be here. I hope you guys are having a great night so far. But yeah, I noticed the comment, and like it brought to my attention as I read the comment, I realized, I thought to myself, people even like Toronto areas, I'll just always be seeing on social media like black teens even killing each other over not even Jordans, over like anything, drugs, all that. And that came to my attention because I was thinking about the youth in Toronto and even in York region. It's about like the environment that we are in. So like say sometimes you can't even blame the kids in the situation because it's what they're all used to like growing up. And sometimes you gotta blame the parents because some parents aren't fighting like Virginia, like just like the drug dealer's mom, when if you remember the scene where she came out running, like looking all like a mess, and the daughter was just like sitting there all like sad. It's things like that where kids get caught up into like bad environments, and then it just becomes like a normal thing for them. Yeah.
AJ, there was a part where the one of the youth says, they made me do it. The part where he had to step on that person's glasses and say, they made me do it. What's the difference in between in York? You live in Aurora, and Aurora is the top 11th place according to McLean magazine, best place to live. Do you think there's a big difference in terms of your decision to survive and to be unique and to stand strong in school system or in your community as a youth versus living into another lower, what would be considered another lower income environment?
Mm, Personally, well, in Aurora, more like you can be influenced in negative and positive ways, but I feel like around in our community, people will do things just because they see that it's like popular or like trendy, for example. So, like, for example, say like drugs or smoking. Kids get into that because they see everyone doing it and they think that it's cool. So, like, everyone just jumps into the same loophole and they all become connected in that sort of influence. But aside from that, I find Aurora, it's an advantage for me to be living in Aurora compared to like Toronto or other regions because I know people in those areas. And like for like I remember when I go to Humber College and I would tell people that I'm from Aurora and they would like literally like laugh at me and like call, and my nickname there is like Aurora, and they assume like, oh, you're just a rich black kid. And then in their area they're kind of like low income type kids, but like they're still respectful kids, but like they look at me like I'm rich and I have everything handed to me, which wasn't true. So I feel like it's based on like where you live and the environment you're in and what you're used to. So yeah, that's what I think about it.
Wow. Thank you for that. How are you guys enjoying the conversation out there? It feels hot in here. Wow, thank you for that. Nelia, do you or Rebecca have any questions for AJ before he goes off and before we address what he says?
I'd like to ask it just again, just more for an education for myself. Through my own desire to learn and be, a better person overall, is that I hear it over and over in the Black community. It's just that you always have to be better. And I'll go on a little. I have this article that was written. Serena Williams, the tennis player who lost yesterday and broke my heart. And she's written this fantastic art because I just think she's a brilliant athlete and just a representative of tennis and just of a Black woman. And she talks about it in the interview of how everything she does, she has to be better. Every time she looks across the court, she knows what the other person is, thinking, that she has to step up. She has to be bigger and better for everything. And I've heard that a lot throughout my existence too, about people of color who always feel that they have this added pressure to be better, to represent differently, and it's just for my own education, because I don't understand it, because from my perspective, I always try to be better, but I don't take it as a pressure to be better. Like, I don't feel that pressure from my community. I don't feel that pressure from my audience. And so I'm just trying to relate to it, to have an understanding so that I could do better in a circumstance like that. I don't know if AJ, is that a fair question, or is it a pressure that's applied to you? Is it a pressure you put on yourself? Is it pressure from society?
Well, I don't, to do better.
To always be better. You always have to. You can't make the mistake, right? You can't do that.
Well, I don't totally agree with that, because I know there are some individuals that I know that, for example, like how I told you, how they're like, oh, you're rich, or like everything's handed to you. Like, they could do better if they chose to, but they're just like they're settling.
Okay.
If you know what I mean?
Yeah. No.
That's why I say I also blame the parents, because they're also settling for what's going on with their child's situation. Like, they'll just go home, come back, smoke, and like not pay attention to the environment that they're in, or try to do better for their family.
Yeah.
So AJ, do you ever feel like you have to work 10 times harder than a white student or a white youth? So if you're playing basketball, then you need to be better, always be. Is that what you were referring to, Nelia?
Yeah, like at everything you do, you've got to get the better grades. You've got to, whether it's the way you deliver an answer if you're asked a question, it's just kind of having your work done on time. Especially as a young person in a school system too, that often does not show you, like, Councillor Gallo was saying at Hartman, where when you have some, when you're putting up pictures, where now you have an image that's as reflective of you, so if that teacher or that principal put up pictures of, war veterans, of Black war veterans, students see that, and then they understand, there was a contribution, right? I mean, we did participate. Even with all the other BS that was going on with the civil rights, and Black people saying that they were not mentally capable of fighting during World War I. That was the assessment that the government did, in the US. So there's so much of that, but then they're put to fight, although they've been deemed, not intelligent enough to be able to. But, so that's kind of that pressure. I don't know if that, that to always have the right answer, not to have, your clothes, not to be disheveled. Like, it always has to be that, like, that presentation of self too.
Mm-hmm.
And, so, because, I see my son go out and he looks like a mess. And all I say, is that what you're going out like, looking like that to represent yourself? Yes, Mom. Okay. I don't think anything of it, but I don't know, and again, and I take it as just because that's my world and my acceptance. No one's going to look at him, and he might say, whatever, he's poorly dressed, but who cares? Right. In that sense, right? Because that's not important in the sense of his, so it's just, I found it, I've always, like I said, I've heard it over and over, and just trying to understand that pressure.
It's really beautiful, and thank you, AJ, for your contribution tonight. Thank you for giving us that youth perspective. The time is going by so quickly. I'm going to bring on Rebecca. Rebecca, what would you want to add to AJ and Chrisia? We're going to bring back Chrisia for 1 second, then we're going to have John Gallo back. So welcome back, Chrisia. Rebecca, what would you want to add? Because you are an important part of this community, and you have been a support and a backbone to me, to keep encouraging me to keep going, to not quit, to not give up, to be resourceful. What would you want to add to what Chrisia and AJ has to say before we bring on John Gallo?
I guess, well, first for AJ, I was going to ask him, does he feel he has to diminish his brightness because he has a supportive family? He comes from a community that's more affluent. Does he have to diminish that when he's hanging out with his friends at Humber, because he'll be, I know earlier when Cosby Show was a thing, people would use that as a slanderous term in the Black community. Oh, you're so white, or oh, you're so Bill Cosby, if you were doing well and successful. So does he feel he has to do that? And piggybacking on that, do you feel that you have to dim your light sometimes? Second question is directed to Chrisia, is what specifically can we do other than being a voice for the unheard? We're lucky that we live in a country, in a province, that our school board is the same on paper, economically. From Sudbury to Toronto, they are given the same dollars per student. It might look a little different because of some parent councils that have more money, and that's been supposedly flatlined according to the government. So what can we do other than the school piece to start leveling the playing field? Fiona and I do talk with the mayor and other levels where encouraging more people of color positions to come up specifically for that. But other than that, I don't know how else we can start making the change we need to see for more equalization.
So Chrisia, you have a minute. Can you try, do you want to add anything to that before we bring on John Gallo?
Yeah, you guys, thank you for the question. I had a minute to calm down, and I would say, yeah, it's true.
No, it's a tight conversation, but it's needed to be had. So somebody said, I love hearing from the youth. Yes, we love hearing from the youth. They're the next generation. Their voice matter. And I love talking to the youth. So thank you for that comment. Go ahead, Chrisia.
Thank you for saying I'm young. I think that speaking directly to what we can do is literally have key performance indicators on a quarterly basis that you can refer to so that we see what we're waiting for. Are we waiting for money? Are we waiting for white people to get a conscience? Are we waiting for, the right system to be in place so that these systemic changes can start rolling in? That accountability needs to be placed on the people in charge and not the people experiencing the suffering. Like,
wow.
We want to be able to teach you how we can swim so well in our waters, but it's incredibly difficult for myself to constantly be under pressure to be asked how. Does that make sense? It's like, literally do anything, and like I said, the accountability is just necessary. Like Mr. Gallo can speak for himself, but I'm sure that there are certain things put in place that are just performative and just to check off a box. And we don't want to be doing things in vain just to make ourselves feel better.
Well, I thank you for that, Chrisia. I thank you and I appreciate you being a voice tonight. Sometimes we don't want to, what I love is that the people that I ask sometimes to be on, I don't want to tell them what. I can never tell them what to say. And I don't have to agree with you because it cannot just be a voice for what you agree with. We have to have that rough conversation. So Chrisia, we thank you. We appreciate you. I'll get back to you. We'll bring on John Gallo so we can have this final wrap up of our conversation as we're counting down. Someone says, yes, the people in charge don't realize the emotional labor it takes for Black people and people of color to guide you and direct you. Yeah. Wow. Thank you for that contribution.
Can I say one thing too? And within,
yes, we'll bring on John Gallo in the meantime. Go ahead.
And when it comes to education and access to education, we need to understand in Canada, for our Indigenous people on the reserves, they don't have the same access that other children do. There's a law that's in Jordan's Principle that came in, and it was focused on having medical access to Indigenous communities, that they have actually extended it to include now education. So that if parents can't afford, if our Indigenous community, if they can't afford to send their children into Thunder Bay, like they do up north in Ontario, for their final education in high school, that their children don't go. So again, it becomes that. So, there's a law now put in place, and it has become, and it went to the Supreme Court, because it is a civil rights, and that we are responsible as a nation to allow every child access to school, and not because they can't afford it. So it does exist here too.
I thank you for that, and I'm going to turn it to Mr. Gallo. I wrote something down because, like I said, this was very emotional for me, and I've kept it very well because you guys did most of the talking, so that's amazing. I was writing down last night that why when I stand up and speak up, I'm considered aggressive or an angry Black woman, or people not trying to be real with me because they don't want to tick off a Black person. I don't want that. I want us to can get deep and raw and address the concern. Having conflict doesn't mean we are angry or we are bad. It means we are a passionate group of people who want change and not afraid to dig up the mess until we get to the solution. So we did spoke, Mr. Gallo spoke before about the tokenism, the doing something for doing something is the part that bothers me the most. As we close off, Mr. Gallo, what would you like to leave with us from this movie and how it impacts our community and what we can probably start to chip away at to make the change that we need to see and be a part of the change that we want to see? Because we already realize that it doesn't mean because I'm Black, I stand for what is just and what is good for my own, even my own culture. It doesn't mean we can have white supremacies in Black body. So I don't, you just have to have the right heart and the right motive. So what would you like to touch on as we close off? Sorry, I think I didn't hear you.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. To I guess it's a great conversation, and I think it's fantastic to hear the various perspectives. And I'm in, as a politician, I expected a little bit to, everybody loves to hate a politician, so it's okay, and I can take it. But I did find a quote that I think, if you'll allow me to read it, I think it's appropriate specifically for the discussion.
Go right ahead.
And this film. And it's by Barack Obama, and he's and it geared around more Black Lives Matter, but it speaks well to what we're discussing. And he said, Black Lives Matter movement is really effective in bringing attention to problems. Once you've highlighted an issue and brought it to the people's attention and shined the spotlight, the elected officials or those people who are in a position to start bringing about change are ready to sit down with you. Then you can't just keep on yelling at them, and you can't refuse to meet because it might compromise the purity of your position. The value of social movements and activism is to get you to the table, to get you in the room, and then to start trying to figure out how this problem going to be solved. And I think it's poignant because not only is it related to the movie and what she was doing, I think we're all human beings, and sometimes that that it's a little rough, that stop yelling part, but it's very important point, because when you have allies that really want to help you, and you inadvertently bring them down, the human character is for them to, if they're not strong enough, to push away and say, why do I got to bother with this? So we have to, as much as advocate, we have to strike that balance, and I think it's really important to do that.
There's a quote that says, "It is
at least my world."
That's okay. There's a quote that says, "It is not our light, but our darkness that most frightens us." And I think that the moment we're not used to something, we start backing away from it. Ouch. What this change going to do? What is this going to erupt? And I feel that when we have a preset agenda and we're not ready to restructure when it's needed, it's a problem, because we can't fix change without doing some renovation. So that do something part that you talked about earlier, I am still struggling with that because I don't want to just do something. Black History Month, we are doing a whole month just because obviously we have never done it. And it takes some time to have some conversation and get us more accustomed to having this conversation. But like Rebecca and I was talking, it doesn't, and I've been talking with Shauna White from the town, it doesn't stop here. It's a continuous conversation on different level that includes everybody. So when you look on a platform, you're not going to look on just Black faces because that's not what Black history is about. It's about us coming together and be educated, being a part of the change that we want to see, not beating down somebody because they be a part or stand on the side and criticize the change. But come in, let's get our hands dirty or whatever needs to be done, but just being a part of that. So someone just says people need to really see that there is a problem. It's real and it's having an impact on our community and it's not going away. Wow, who wants to touch on that?
Yeah, but you know, it's the thing. It's just like, you know, how many, you know, you and I have had this conversation, Fiona, where I've gotten, but this is not your fight, Nelia. Oh, this is absolutely my fight.
Yeah.
Because you know, again, and I always think about, if it can happen to you, it can happen to me. So when do I step back?
Yeah.
Never. Injustice is injustice. Wrong is wrong. We know enough about what right is and what wrong is. And it's about having those uncomfortable conversations so people can look within themselves and try to understand where it's coming from them. You know, why is that coming from them, to make those adjustments for change?
And Mr. Gallo, lastly, where do we go when nobody wants to have that uncomfortable conversation?
Well, what do you mean? Where do we go? I mean, we're doing this, and it can be uncomfortable. I think from a perspective of the town, there's a task force that's been established. I think there's a lot of work to be done at that level, but to me, that's the starting point. That's the place where you have those conversations. That's the place where whatever comes out of that comes to council and we can affect change. It's a start. It's an open door. And I think it needs to be worked on. And you're probably experiencing some of the frustrations that I experience. Many times we want things done yesterday. Or we want to be more involved in the decision making. As frustrating as it is, you got to still be at the table and you can't remove yourself and keep fighting.
I appreciate that. Rebecca, what do you want to leave us with today?
I keep thinking of the image that the forest fire happens in nature to create change, and it's the only way that certain things can be revitalized. The Aboriginal people in, I think, New Zealand purposely garden through forest fires. You have to hit rock bottom, unfortunately, to facilitate change. And that's what's happened. They said this year, the reason that it felt like society hit rock bottom is because everyone was watching finally. COVID slowed us all down enough to see what was always going on anyways. And everybody has a phone now. So everyone is accountable. Before we were not.
Yeah.
So it can only get better.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. Obviously, we can't talk about these things in 1 hour. And this is why it's so beautiful that this will be an ongoing conversation, because I know Nelly and I have a lot of things cooking up for this community and coming back to these movies to chip away at it until we get every piece of it juiced out, because we still have to go back to the movie that's called Self-Made and still juice all of that piece out, because when we watch something and we can identify, then it's easier to have a conversation. So Rebecca, thank you. We're not going to acknowledge that comment on the screen for this call for this time, because but thank you so much for your passion and for your feedback. Rebecca, thank you for being here today. Thank you for being a voice. Thank you for being my support. Thank you for being an admin of the Aurora Black community. Thank you for being an inclusivity-driven warrior that do not quit because somebody say you're white and you didn't belong. I've been told that I wasn't black enough. So we all have heard something, so let's just so thank you for being there. And, and, and just thank you. Just thank you so much for that. Thank you. Mr. Gallo, thank you so much for being a part of the conversation today. Nelia, what do you want to leave us with?
I think of the line of the movie, because one of the things I really liked about the movie was the representation. They had black teachers, black politicians, so it gave you kind of really good. And I loved that little scene just with that Venus flytrap. When he said, "Living things learn to survive," and and that's what we all try to do. Sometimes we do it well, sometimes we don't, but it's that adaptation for survival.
Okay. Well, I thank you. I thank you, Nelia. I thank you for the education, because even as I go through this, I'm being educated through what you exposed me to in the movie, and how to start watching movie from a different lens. Because sometimes we just sit and watch to enjoy, but then you watch to erupt change and to disturb your own biases, because we all are biased. I don't care what color you're trapped into. We have our biases, and we have to be very intentional to not try to fight for one thing, but develop another thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
it's a self-aware, it's being self-aware, right? Like you said, you watched the film, it angered you, it ignited something in you, and that's what you need, right? You need that for change, right? And be the change, right? Like Gandhi says, be the change you want, right?
That's right. Well, thank you so much, Nelia. Thank you so much. Guys, thank you for tuning in today. Thank you for being a part of this conversation. We could never have done it without the community. We cannot do something for the people without the people. And so we thank you for your voice. We thank you for your feedback. We thank you for your comments. We thank you that even if you're just grabbing the replay, that you will be letting us know how you feel and how this movie connected with you. And you don't have to, you may not even agree with something we say, but share with us, because disagreement is not unhealthy. Disrespectful disagreement is unhealthy. So we want to be called out and kept accountable. I said to someone recently that I don't know anything. I'm just a mother and a business owner. And I just love my community, and I love people, and I want to be a part of the change instead of sitting back and criticize everything that's not going well. So again, like we said before, I'll rise up. I'll rise like a day. I'll rise up. In spite of the ache, I'll rise up. And I'll do it 1,000 times again. We cannot quit. We have to serve with love, compassion, grace, and just a good sense of understanding. I thank you so much, Aurora, for receiving me in my simple self as I am, with no title, but just a simple part of a residents who want to have a community where I feel belonged, where we can all feel belonged. So thank you for your feedback. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your encouragement. Thank you for being a support. And thank you for never, ever let me feel alone. I thank you. I thank you. I thank you. Yes, thank you. Appreciate that. Well done indeed. I received that. Thank you again for audience. Thank you, Sassy Lavi Production. We could not have done it without Veronica from Sassy Lavi, Adriana, that's been producing tonight. We even went over way beyond our time. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for sticking with us. Thank you, Aurora. We can't thank you enough. We thank you to our mayor. We acknowledge the entire board of our council. My girl, Sandra Humphrey, big up yourself. I love you so much, and I thank you so much. John Gallo, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you to everyone of the council of Aurora. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for making yourself accessible. And I appreciate that. I thank you. Thank you, everyone, again, for joining this conversation. We're signing up. We love you. Keep rising up. Keep rising up. Let's stand up, speak up, show up, and be a part of the change. God bless you. Have a good night. Thank you, guys.